time. We were on the Senate floor for a significant time, and then some committee members had a meeting between the Senate floor action and this afternoon's hearing. I believe we have enough committee members to get started. We're almost there. We have 9 bills this afternoon. We're going to start with Senator Jackson. He has 2 bills before us today: Prince George's County School Facilities and Public Surcharge, 931, and Commemorative Days, Overdose Awareness Day. We do have a fairly extensive voting session afterwards, so hopefully we can keep our comments very concise and to the point. And if we have an amendment or we're favorable with an amendment, please speak mostly to the amendment so we have an understanding, so we don't have to cut you off because of the clock. Then we have a number of House bills. So with that being said, Senator Jackson, you want to start off with 931?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair. For the record, Senator Jackson, Senator for District 27, on behalf of Senate Bill 931. Senate Bill 931 is a pretty straightforward bill that extends Prince George's County school facilities and public safety surcharges from 2021 to 2024, and correspondingly extends the required findings reporting deadline from December 1st, 2020 to December 1st, 2022. Used in recent years to offset infrastructure costs created by new development, these surcharges have also been a means to study housing framework of the county and to enact ways to better increase the supply of affordable housing, both locally and statewide. This legislation will merely allow the county to continue with this surcharge and to continue enabling them to use the funding that it generates to offset costs and to properly fund both its public safety and school systems. The bill was passed unanimously in the Prince George's Senate delegation with the amendment that should be in your packet. The amendment requires some reporting by the county regarding the sufficiency of the surcharges to Prince George's County Senate and House delegations. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask you and the committee for a favorable report of this bill as amended. With your permission, I'd like to bring my panel, which includes representatives from the county, to discuss the bill and to answer any technical questions you may have. Thank you.
That's great, Senator. Thank you. We have Angie Rogers and Maria Harris, both from the county. Please, you can go in whichever order you'd like.
So, Senator Pinsky, I just sent you a message. I don't see Ms. Rogers or Ms. Harris. I don't see them signed in.
They were sent a link, Ms.
They were.
Stanton?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Well, we do have a delegation letter. There are things in the folder. So, Senator, we're taking your word for it, and the Senate delegation.
And I do thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do know that they were in ENT. I got a text from them on the way over right after I left you off the elevator. So I think they may be trying to come in shortly.
Okay. Well, if they do, we're going to go into your second bill. I will go back.
Thank you.
If it gets too late in the hearing, we're probably not going to go back to them, but for now we will. So we're going to go to 936, commemorative days. It's Senator Jackson. He'll be followed by Senator Mattingly and Pat Mahoney.
Yes.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman, Chair Lady. For the record, Senator Jackson on behalf of Senate Bill 936. Senate Bill 936 is a bill that simply requires the governor to annually proclaim August 31st as Overdose Awareness Day and to correspondingly lower state flags to half staff. Each year, Maryland loses thousands of residents to the growing epidemic of drug overdoses and drug-related deaths. And as we have learned over the years, drug overdoses and deaths have no specific place or persons that it attacks. This addiction is horrible. According to the report on opioid and intoxication, fatality data from the Maryland Department of Health, Maryland recorded 2,025 deaths between January and September of 2020, representing a 12% increase from the same time in 2019. The Maryland Department of Health also reports the total drug and alcohol intoxication deaths as steadily climbing. Total drug and alcohol intoxication deaths data indicates that Maryland lost a stunning 18,698 lives between 2007 and 2020. Within that time, Maryland lost 13,479 lives between the years in just a 5-year span, 2015 and 2020. Quite stunning. That 13,479 number accounts for some 75% of the 14-year total accounted for in the data by the Maryland Department of Health. As someone who spent the majority of my professional career in law enforcement, I've seen firsthand the impact that drug addiction can have on individuals and their loved ones. Reducing the stigma attached to seeking treatment for addiction would save countless lives. I'm hopeful that declaring August 31st as Overdose Awareness Day would be a means to reduce said stigma and to quell the suffering of those who are addicted and those who love them. Several other states are undertaking similar efforts to raise awareness of this epidemic. This bill is modeled after a recently passed bill from New Jersey. There are 12 other states that are currently in the legislative process, including Ohio, Alabama, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, and 8 others. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd ask you and the committee for a favorable report of this bill. And with your permission, I'd like to bring in my panel, which includes my constituents, Sandra Mattingly and the mayor of Chesapeake Beach, Mr. Patrick Mahoney. With your permission, I'd like to bring in Ms. Mattingly to offer testimony as my primary witness. And with that,
Thank you.
For a favorable report. Thank you.
Ms. Mattingly, welcome back to Annapolis.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to be here to testify on Senate Bill 936 regarding Overdose Awareness Day. I also want to extend my thanks to Senator Jackson for sponsoring this most important bill. And I'm going to go outside the box here a little bit, and I want to extend my heartfelt thanks as well to Don Rao from the Senator's office, who has worked tirelessly to get us here today. My name is Sandy Mattingly. I'm your neighbor, co-worker, family member, and friend. I'm also a mom, and on February 28, 2018, I lost my son, Chase. At only 21, he died from fentanyl intoxication. Blindsided and totally clueless, I was a mom who thought, not my child, until it happened. I had no idea what fentanyl was. A drug, an opioid? What is an opioid? What opioid crisis? My son was healthy. He was hardworking, smart, and had a bright future. We were close. What the hell happened? Since that day, 3 years ago, I vowed never to let Chase's death be in vain. I established a nonprofit, and working along with many others advocating for awareness, educating our parents, empowering our youth, and promoting hope and recovery, I have met just too many families who have lost loved ones, worked with many organizations on local outreach efforts, and I've stood by those in our recovery community to promote hope. What I've learned in the last 3 years is that we've lost thousands of Maryland citizens, and we've lost hundreds of thousands across the country to fentanyl intoxication and overdose death. I also know that during this time, Maryland has made significant progress in addressing the opioid epidemic. But from where I sit, the stigma, the shame, and the denial continues to be ever prevalent. We can continue to create prevention programs and we can provide treatment resources, but if we don't unite state by state, and as a country to end the silence, the stigma, and reduce the denial, our communities will continue to bury their heads in shame and denial, and our programs won't do them any good. Mental health issues are rising. Overdoses are continuing. How many more have to die? Another challenge we face will be the aftermath of COVID-19, which has already begun and has had a significant impact on the rise of overdoses and the state of mental health within our communities. We will need to be even more prepared to address our mental health, substance use, and abuse issues, which are likely to explode due to the trauma this pandemic will leave behind. We have a chance to do that beginning right now. We must show compassion towards these issues to help end the silence and the stigma in order for our community to begin healing. We need to rise up and come together to end this crisis. With your support of Senate Bill 936, we can officially recognize August 31st every year as Overdose Awareness Day in Maryland. We have the chance to make a public statement by lowering our flags to half-staff for the duration of the day to show our citizens that they are valued. This effort would not only show compassion to those who have lost loved ones to this tragedy, but it would also promote awareness that overdose is preventable and would have a significant positive impact on those who currently struggle with addiction and mental health issues. And I must point out, passing this bill will cost nothing. Senate Bill 936 currently requests the governor to order the state flag to be flown half-staff on August 31st. I would like to recommend and encourage that we take this one step further and request our governor to order our U.S. flag be flown half-staff on this day as well. When the whole nation is mourning, state governors have the authority to order the U.S. flag flown half-staff for local remembrance. Not only is Maryland affected, the whole nation is mourning and suffering from this horrific epidemic.
Thank you. Ms. Mattingly, you're gonna have to wrap it up, please.
Okay. I learned just today that Virginia House and Senate had unanimously passed legislation similar to this and will ask their governor to lower all flags.
Great.
We must remember that substance use and abuse does not discriminate, and it is okay not to be okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, let's go to Mayor Mahoney of Chesapeake Beach. Welcome, Mr. Mayor. You're on mute, sir.
There we go. Is that better? Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Father. Senator Jackson, especially thank you, Sandy. I'm here to tell you that opioid abuse awareness efforts do work, and that a favorable report on this bill will let you know that your actions will save lives across Maryland. Here in Chesapeake Beach and North Beach, we started an opioid abuse awareness committee 4 years ago. Our community efforts were held at churches, community centers, children's playgroups, etc. We provided training. We've had outreach to over 1,000 people. We've gotten information to over 5,000 people, and we have removed pounds of unused prescription drugs from our streets. We're seeing positive results, and I believe that there will be positive results if this bill passes. The number of people who overdosed on opioids in Chesapeake Beach over a 3-year period reduced by 32%. In North Beach, they reduced by 55%. The deaths, fatalities in Chesapeake Beach were reduced from 5 to 1. So I just want to conclude by telling you that awareness works and your actions will work. So please give this effort a support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Let's go to Mr. McAvoy.
All right, thank you so much, Senator. Welcome, Senator Jackson. Congratulations on your elevation. I am in opposition to this bill, and I want to say that we've had a long bout of this in recent years. It's only gotten worse. And I want to read something from an answer from a solutions standpoint. Even more concerning from a societal standpoint, the findings that children without a meaningful relationship to their father are far more likely to develop serious problems with drugs and alcohol. They're also more likely to be arrested and to commit a crime resulting in incarceration. I understand your heart on this. I do. I live in Baltimore. I think most people in Baltimore have addicts someplace through their paths. I think this is wrong-minded because what we're doing is we're elevating a people that oftentimes, and we can't speak for everyone, I'm speaking from a policy standpoint, who have a system of addiction. They have long criminal sheets, histories of destroying families, and they rarely have ever paid back what they've taken from society. When we're looking at remembering those who've died, we don't have remembrance for the victims of people who have been harmed along the way. And for that reason, I urge an unfavorable. I think it's backwards and wrong-minded to elevate poor behavior. I think that we need to be looking forward for solutions. I will add, this isn't the first time I've spoken to Annapolis. For a decade, I've been bringing these concerns, trying to say, let's bring a solution. Let's fix things, not just cover over them. My heart goes out to those who have been harmed. I know many, and many that have been harmed in this city. It's a continuing struggle. There's a piece of morality that we're having to fight with this, and we should continue that fight. And I continue to send ideas to help things. Thank you for your time, committee.
Thank you, sir. That concludes the hearing on 936. Ms. Harris did join us right as the senator was leaving on the prior bill 931. Ms. Harris, if you want to briefly, it's a local bill with unanimity from the senators. If you'd like to speak briefly to it from the county government, welcome to.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to mention, because you asked some questions of me previously about what the numbers look like this year. I want to let you the FY 2020 numbers so far for the surcharges. For the public safety surcharge, it was just a little over $39 million. And for the school surcharge, I think it was just a little over $16 million. So I want to let you know we are tracking those numbers because you did ask.
Thank you. If you could forward that to the full Prince George's Senate delegation, that would be great.
We will, sir. Thank you.
Anything else to add, Ms. Harris?
No, just that we kind of want to make sure this process gets extended for 3 more years. It does terminate in this June of 2021. And so we'd like to continue it for 3 more years, and we'll report again in the next year about how the numbers are going. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes Senate Bill 931 and 936. I see Ms. here. Ms. Morris, are you going to present 938?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Good afternoon.
Hold it, Lori.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
938 is Health Occupations, Senator Peters, members, veterans, and military spouses. Ms. Morris is a longtime Chief of Staff of Senator Peters. Welcome to EHE.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The senator apologizes for not being here for this bill. B&T is voting, and hopefully he's voting on some of your bills, so you want him up there voting. Anyway, as you probably, most of you know, the senator is chair of the Veterans Caucus, and in that role, we have the opportunity a lot to work with the Defense Department's Office on Military, Community, and Family Policy. And this bill is their #1 priority this year, and it's supported by the Veterans Caucus. I have Chris Arnold, who runs the state liaison office for the DOD's Office on Military, Community, and Family Policy here to explain it. And so if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the real work over to him.
That's great. Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, Lori, and Chairman, honorable committee members. It is wonderful to see you again. The Department of Defense is grateful for the opportunity to offer its strongest possible endorsement of the policies set forth in Senate Bill 938. My name is Christopher Arnold. I am the Northeast Region Liaison at the DoD State Liaison Office, operating under the direction of the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. We represent the department and establish relationships with state leaders across the country who are concerned for troops and their families' welfare by harmonizing state and federal law and regulation on policy problems of national significance. In 2021, as Lori said, this bill is the single most important piece of legislation to the Department of Defense in Maryland. Senate Bill 938 echoes the historic 2020 military spouse legislation from the Senate President that eased application requirements for a service member, veteran, or military spouse who applies for an occupational or professional license. The President's Bill, Chapter 177 of 2020, enacted revisions to reciprocity requirements for occupations and professions regulated by the Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing, removing the requirement for a substantial equivalency determination. This bill makes identical changes for occupations and professions governed by the health professional licensing boards. Providing a temporary license allows a military spouse to practice while fulfilling the requirements needed to qualify for endorsement in the licensing state or while awaiting verification of documentation supporting an endorsement. As proposed in Bill 938, DoD recommends temporary licenses should require minimal documentation, such as proof of holding a current license in good standing and marriage to an active duty service member who is assigned to the state. From 2011 to 2016, the department worked with all 50 states through common methods used by licensing boards to expedite the acceptance of a license from another state. However, these methods proved insufficient to address the underlying concerns of military spouses. In 2017 and 2018, we studied the implementation of these laws through our military spouse license portability examination by the University of Minnesota. The results found that future efforts to improve Maryland's Veterans Full Employment Act of 2013 could include legislation that provides support for temporary licenses for military spouses licensed in another state, as most boards do not offer a temporary license option for military spouses. In a letter early last year to Governor Hogan accompanying the Secretary of Defense's report on military spouse licensure, the department noted that while Chapter 177 of 2020 addressed such recommendation, it did not apply to the health occupations. The secretaries of the military departments have made the importance of military spouse licensure explicitly clear as they consider the availability of license reciprocity when evaluating future basing decisions or mission alternatives. This consideration was codified by Congress as a requirement in the 2020 National Defense Authorization Act. The secretaries must consider whether the state in which an installation subject to a basing decision is or will be located has entered into reciprocity agreements to recognize and accept professional and occupational licensure and certification credentials granted by or in other states, or allows for the transfer of such licenses and certifications granted by or in other states. In 2013, Maryland passed.
Mr. Arnold, we're going to have to wrap it up. Give us the bottom line.
Roger, Chairman, we appreciate the opportunity to support the policy reflected in Senate Bill 938, and we are especially grateful to Senator Peters for introducing this important piece of legislation.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Robin Elliott. She's favorable with amendment. MNA. Robin?
Great. Good afternoon, Robin Elliott here on behalf of the Maryland Nurses Association. I want to thank Ms. Morris and Mr. Arnold for helping me understand kind of the origins of this bill. I do also want to mention, I think there may be some amendments that the sponsor may be proposing. I thank you, Mr. Arnold, for sharing them with me. We looked at the amendments and we just want to raise, we still have some questions, and this is around the concept of waiving licensure requirements for people coming from another state without substantially equivalent requirements. The first question is, those individuals might be coming over and may end up having an unrestricted license, even though they may not have the qualifications necessarily to administer drugs or vaccinations. I'm thinking of some of the bills in front of you. The second thing we want to raise, it's just a real pragmatic concern, is when someone isn't qualified, it's most likely because they are missing some coursework or even need a higher degree. 6 months isn't really enough time. Most health professional education Programs don't let someone into the program who is not fully matriculated. In other words, if you just need one course, it may be very hard to get into nursing school or physical therapy school or whatever kind of health occupation school. So these are just some pragmatic questions that we have raised, and we are happy to continue to work with the advocates and the sponsor on this bill. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Elliott, obviously we're concerned about the practices of all of the areas of medical providers and auxiliary. So please keep us informed and offer any amendments as we continue to discuss this. So thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Senator Carrozza?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions. The first would be for Mr. Arnold. And, you know, I'd like to see if we can work through some of these issues as a member of the Veterans Caucus, which has endorsed this legislation, and also knowing the value of compacts. But my question for Mr. Arnold is specifically, it's my understanding that when these military families move into state, and there's sometimes the challenge of the spouse with having, you know, a professional type role or job, and that has an impact on the military family, as well as the areas that you're talking about with the compact are in areas where we have workforce shortages, health shortages. So I wanted Mr. Arnold just to comment a little bit more on the impact of the military families. And then I have a question for the bill sponsor, Ms. Morris, if I allow Mr. Arnold to respond, if I
Yeah,
could.
Mr. Arnold, briefly though, we have a lot of bills we have to vote on later.
Roger, Chairman, and appreciate brevity is the soul of wit. I will say the department encourages states to engage in immediate actions to fully implement military spouse licensure laws, near-term actions to attain a baseline of getting spouses a license within 30 days based on minimal documentation, and long-term solutions for reciprocity through compacts. So the senator is correct in that issuing a temporary license can cover that gap period between the issuance of either a permanent license or a compact license, which will be of great benefit to service members and their families.
Okay, so, and that, then I go to my question to the bill sponsor, and Ms. Morris, thank you for the presentation. This is an important bill. And with that response, with Mr. Arnold's response about the kind of the gap period during, you know, that they would be headed for the full licensure where they would be covered. And there were some amendments offered. I don't know if those amendments were offered by the bill sponsor, and I'm glad to see our expert here, Ms. Robin Elliott, involved. But if there's anything specific you wanted to say, how those amendments address some of the concerns that have been raised.
So I apologize, I forgot to mention the amendments, but they should be in your bill files. And those amendments are sponsor amendments, but they were done with the cooperation of Chris Arnold and his office. We have been in touch with Robin Elliott, and we're certainly willing to talk to her about any other concerns she has.
Okay, and I'll offer to work with you on that as well.
I will let the senator know. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Look, I think the key question here is going to be equivalency. We don't want to endanger public health. So if the people have the skills, we want to expedite it. But if the skills are less, we don't want to jeopardize anyone's life. So we're going to have to figure that one out. Thank you. That concludes the hearing, I believe. Yes, that concludes the hearing on 938. Thank you, Ms. Morris. Moving on to Senator Bailey, 946, Historic St. Mary's City Fort to 400 Commission. Welcome, Senator Bailey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here this afternoon to introduce you to Senate Bill 946, which would establish the Historic St. Mary's City Fort to 400 Commission. You can read my written testimony. I have a very astute panel. I'm going to turn it over to them in a minute. But I just want you to understand that we are starting a commission which will give us ample time to ensure that we can meet all of the goals for the 400th anniversary, which is coming up in 2034. I have worked very diligently with the President of the Senate, a number of the Governor Hogan's cabinet secretaries, the staff of Historic St. Mary's City to put together this commission. I would like to thank everyone for the contributions and attention to this very important issue for all of Maryland and St. Mary's County, especially District 29. This bill does have the support of the delegation, and I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 946. Turn it over to my astute panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bailey. Let's go to Regina Fadden, followed by William George.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Regina Fadden, and I am the Executive Director of the Historic St. Mary's City Commission. Chairman Pinsky, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about Senate Bill 946. Also here is the Commission's Chair, Father Bill George, who will speak to you. You have my written testimony, so I will not repeat that, but I want to thank Senator Bailey for sponsoring this legislation in order to start the process of planning the state's 400th birthday in 2034. The anniversary celebration will be the culmination of activities of the proposed commission. In the intervening years, the Historic St. Mary's City Fort to 400 Commission will help galvanize agencies, organizations, and businesses across the state, building partnerships and economic benefits that will last long after the 2034 celebration. Historic St. Mary's City wholeheartedly supports this bill. Father?
Well, Mr. Chairman and Historic St. Mary's City Senator Jack Bailey and my classmate, Senator Kagan, I'm simply here to offer my moral support for Dr. Fadden. She's the best. The only thing I would wish, but you can't do anything about it, is if I could raise her salary. She is so good. As chairman of the commission, thank you for all you do for that little city. As a Jesuit chairman of the city where the first Jesuit landed in the United States, this is a trip, and she's made it wonderful. And I really got to thank Senator Bailey for all that he's done for us. God bless you all. I promise a prayer for every one of you before my head hits the pillow tonight.
And I assume you didn't bring the checkbook from the Archdiocese, Father.
Well, I'm a Jesuit. Bishops and I don't get along that well.
So you should have brought their checkbook.
I should
have. Senator Kagan.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to give the warmest hug and welcome to Father George. We were in Leadership Montgomery class of 2002, a million years ago. And he is just a wonderful leader and community presence and a great spirit of warmth and love and wisdom. So it's just a real treat to have him with us today. Thank you for a personal moment.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you were dating him or dating you in terms of age.
Yeah, we were both younger, that's for sure.
Senator Ellis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Bailey, for this bill. Distinguished panelists. As Charles County resident for almost 25 years, my children growing up, going to school in Charles County in various capacities, we've taken quite a few trips to historic St. Mary's City over the years. And this is this wonderful historic place, a beautiful safe place. I mean, just gorgeous location. And one thing my children were always concerned about is that the African experience is, and they said this to me, is kind of suppressed in a lot of the activities in historic St. Mary's City. So as we look at doing this commission, is there a plan to really include a diverse group of folks on this commission and to make sure that the full history of St. Mary's City and its place in the history of Maryland and the United States be covered?
Senator?
Yes. And the answer to that question is yes, and I would refer you to the Senate bill. And you can see all the representatives that will be part of this process. There was a lot of thought that went into this. One of the representatives on the commission is a representative of the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture.
Great, great. That's the answer I wanted to hear. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Can I add one thing to that real quickly?
Please.
I know, I told Gina that she had to be very brief, and I want to be brief, but we do have representatives of the Piscataway too, correct, Gina?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're really trying to be very, very diverse and inclusive.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer. That concludes the hearing on Senator Bailey's local bill. Thank you all for coming. We're going to go to Delegate Henson. And this is Department of Housing and Community Development, the Administration Compliance Monitoring, and Delegate Henson will be followed by Matthew Losak. Welcome, Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 105. This is a standards and reporting bill. The standard that's in place is that the state of Maryland administers low-income housing tax credits. Those are a feature of the IRS code, and they incentivize the building and the refurbishing of affordable housing here in the state of Maryland and throughout the country. What the state of Maryland also does is that post-building, the state of Maryland performs the compliance monitoring on those affordable housing properties for the control period. The compliance monitoring consists of two features. It's a records review, and it's also a quality control check on the properties. The quality control check is designed to root out any dangerous defects that exist in the properties. What the compliance monitoring does is that it then results in a report. That report goes to HUD, and it also goes to the property's owner. What's missing from that process is the resident, those residents being all of our constituents. Our low-income housing tax credit properties exist in all 23 of Maryland's counties and Baltimore cities. There are more than 380 of these properties throughout the state of Maryland, and they are kept in various states of repair, disrepair, and in need of the compliance monitoring process. What House Bill 105 does is three specific things. It requires the Department of Housing and Community Development to publish a report annually that goes through their compliance monitoring findings. It requires them to solicit feedback from the residents of those properties, and it requires them to do both of those functions through a public-facing portal that would be on their website. So it would allow the residents to go to the website and put that information in and to find that information on properties that they might be interested in moving to or properties that they live in so that they can see if their neighbors are experiencing the same challenges that they're experiencing as well. I am thankful to present this bill to the committee. I'll note that the bill passed in the House with bipartisan support out of the Committee from Environment and Transportation and also on third reader out of the House. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to present House Bill 105.
Thank you, Delegate Henson, for your concise and informative information. Let's have Matthew Losak, then we'll take a couple questions. I have one. Matthew Losak, are you with us?
I am with you, sir.
Okay. Please begin.
There we go. Good afternoon, Chairman Pinsky, Vice Chairwoman Kagan, and committee members. My name is Matt Losak. I'm co-founder and executive director of the Montgomery County Renters Alliance, an alliance of more than 30 labor, community, religious, political, and civic action organizations, and thousands of renters. We are Maryland's first and only regional nonprofit dedicated exclusively to renter outreach, education, organizing, and advocacy. For too long, maintenance transparency has been lacking on the part of landlords who disregard renters' ability to know the state of their property and their homes. The Renters Alliance understands the landlord's business communication with property owners, property managers, and HUD in sharing compliance reports, and we encourage responsible landlords to continue ensuring the safety of tenants through these means. That said, what we see is the neglect of the tenant's assurance of proper maintenance and property safety, and the blatant exclusion of the tenant from discussions of maintenance and their basic right to know the state of their homes. This bill asks that all compliance monitoring reports be shared with property residents, as well as require DHCD to publish an annual report on its compliance monitoring. This bill also extends a voice to affected renters by requiring DHCD to receive feedback from residents. In the time of the internet, this should not be a difficult task. Tenants have the right to know the level and adherence to maintenance, health, and other requirements for their homes. We would also urge that crime statistics of apartment communities also be publicly available. Housing safety and quality is far too important for the tenant not to know what is being reported and to be excluded from ensuring what is wrong be fixed. We urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Losak. I did have one quick question. Delegate Henson, we don't hold our breath when agencies come in or not. Sometimes they are offering letters or information. There's nothing in our file. Did DHCD comment at all in the House hearing? At all? Did they even provide a letter of information at all?
They did not, Mr. Chairman. I did have the opportunity to speak with them beforehand, and they did not oppose the bill in my conversations with them, but they did not offer any written or oral testimony in the House hearing.
Thank you. I think I saw Senator Washington followed by the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Delegate Henson. You've been an advocate on these issues, public housing issues, since we first heard about you, so welcome. I guess I wanted a question about the role of the RAB boards, so the resident advisory boards. And I haven't had a chance to fully read the bill completely. I'm scanning it now. Is there a role, or has there ever been a role, a compliance role for these RAB boards? I know typically there's a challenge around their engagement, but what do you know about it, and could you help us with it?
Thank you, Senator Washington, for the question. I think that this bill would help to empower the RAB boards. One of the ways that it would do that is to help give the RAB boards the opportunity to have direct communication with the Department of Housing and Community Development, and then to have that accountability measure to see that if tenants are bringing their concerns to the Resident Advisory Board, the Resident Advisory Board can help empower those tenants to take them right to DHCD, which then has the authority to then take those complaints and either come out and do inspections to review the records to make sure that their records are being kept properly, or to do inspections to make sure that any dangerous defects are being remedied. And if they're not, then DHCD has the ability to go directly and take any measures that they need to, whether it's abating any tax credits or interfacing with the property's owner. And usually just the threat of saying that I could abate any tax credits is a pretty significant measure to get property owners to come into compliance. So it really could be used hand in hand with the grassroots advocacy that the RAB boards do to make sure that they're getting that communication funneled directly up the chain.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to look at this and see if that could be more explicit, because I think that that's a really good path. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Henson, this might be your first bill hearing in the Senate, I'm thinking. You're new to the House, so welcome and congratulations. And it's our first House bill hearing, so congratulations on that too. So question for either you or for my buddy, Matt Losak. Matt, as you know, in Montgomery County, we have MPDUs, and I'm wondering about mixed use housing when you've got lower income affordable housing with other with community based. I'm not going to come up with a name in my brain right now. Market, there we go, market housing or something. Market rate housing. So I'm wondering about the report on compliance monitoring. And you know, I've talked to you about a situation in Rockville that has been still ongoing for about 6 or 7 years. An upgrade that's been taking forever and is really disruptive and disrespectful to the residents because of the mixed income levels. I'm wondering whether that would be included in this bill or whether that's something we would need to consider modifying to make sure that it does.
Well, I'll have to defer to Delegate Henson on the details of the bill and the compliance requirements. And I also meant to say that I wish to thank Delegate Henson for her leadership on this bill. It is important. But Senator Kagan, it is great to see you again. And I will say, tenants have often been excluded from the conversation about maintaining their own homes. This is not an issue between the landlord and the property manager and state or county compliance organs. It should also include people who view their apartment community and their apartments as part of their lives. We've heard arguments all the time that, if we had rent stabilization or just cause eviction law, that the tenants wouldn't care about their communities. It's actually just the opposite. When people are stable for the long term, they look at their homes as a place that they want to maintain. They get angry when somebody puts garbage in the hallway. They talk to the property manager about vermin and construction and noise because they view it as their home. So this bill will help bring them into that conversation.
Matt, I totally agree with and respect everything that you just said, but maybe Delegate Henson or Matt, we can talk offline. What I want to know is in mixed use dwellings, when you've got market rate housing and affordable housing, whether that would be specifically included in this kind of report. So we can talk offline. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's go to Senator Riley, followed by Senator Ellis.
Thank you very much, Senator. Delegate Henson, good to see you. This is a statewide bill.
That's correct.
Local bill. Do you know how many units we may be talking about statewide?
There are 381 properties statewide, and they exist in all 23 of Maryland's counties and Baltimore City.
Thank you very much for bringing this important bill to us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Henson, welcome to EHE. So we're looking at this bill. It's a bill requiring reporting. So correct me if I'm wrong, if it goes beyond just reporting, but if it's just reporting, what is the aim of getting these reports? So we receive these reports. What do you foresee we can do when we get really good data?
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. If I can take the first part of your question first. It requires reporting, but in addition to that, it also requires DHCD to have a public portal where they can receive the residents' complaints. In last year's budget, we included some budget language that had DHCD produce a report on this process and to let us know, among other features, how they were incorporating and soliciting resident feedback. In DHCD, and the report indicated that they had a mechanism for doing that. Well, we had a lot of residents who were testing that feature, who said that they in fact had called the 800 number that was provided to them, and we were still getting consistent feedback. Throughout the pandemic, our housing inspectors were not in buildings because it was unsafe to be inside of people's homes performing inspections. And when they were calling 800 numbers, people weren't getting return phone calls. And that process that DHCD had outlined in the report was not being kept with fidelity. So with having the public facing portal where residents can go online and submit the request online as well, it would give that measure where they would also have the electronic receipt and paper trail of submitting that request to DHCD so that the resident feedback could be included in the report, and it would just be more of a seamless process as opposed to a call center or trying to intercept someone that's there on the property performing the compliance monitor task that's the representative from DHCD. And then the second portion that I think the benefit of the reporting is one that it empowers the resident. They get the opportunity to make informed decisions about where they're choosing to live when they can see what the history of the property is like. They also get the opportunity to understand if their experience is unique or if this is common throughout the property. And then I think it will also give the landlord more of an incentive to make sure that they are keeping up with the standards that they have. And then DHCD as well, when they understand that these reports will not only be submitted internally, but they will also be able to be viewed by the public.
Great. Thank you for filling in the gaps for me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator.
That concludes the hearing on that legislation. Thank you, and great having you in our committee, Delegate Henson, and wish you a long career. That concludes that hearing. We're going to go to Delegate Key, HB 130 LGBTQ Affairs Commission. She will be followed by Joseph Clapsaddle, and then the delegate has a second bill, 189. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Pinsky and distinguished members of EHE. I am Delegate Lily Chi, and I'm really thrilled to be at my very first Senate hearing. And a special shout out to Montgomery County's own Madam Vice Chair. Very happy to see you here. I am here to present HB 130, which is the LGBTQ affairs. I want to preface by saying this bill passed the House last year and crossed over to your committee, but we all know what happened the last year. So here we are a year later. HB 130 establishes a governor's commission on LGBTQ affairs. It is meant to be a home and a bridge to the diverse and growing LGBTQ Marylanders all across the state. This commission would make Maryland just the third state in the country to have a statewide commission for that population after the state of Pennsylvania and the state of Washington. And the reasons why we need it now are threefold. One is even though Maryland has been very progressive in advancing LGBTQ laws and policies at many different fronts, we know it is not enough to just pass laws. We need an identifiable home to assess the needs, to coordinate across all government agencies and community resource providers to track and report progress. And we also know, according to the latest FBI report, that hate crimes against that community is actually on the rise. According to the latest report, there has been a 16% rise during the pandemic year, which is very disturbing, especially violent crimes against non-gender conforming individuals. And just everyday microaggression and discrimination happens all around us, sometimes from the very people who are supposed to help those people. For example, a high school principal in Salisbury actually told a parent who expressed the concerns about her child's safety to just move to a more metropolitan area. And a Wycomico doctor told his client to just leave his office because she told him she was a lesbian. So LGBTQ communities exist in every part of Maryland, but not all communities have their own resources to help the people when they need to reach out and get help. So we need a home to coordinate and to report, to be identifiable, to promote existing resources. And the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives is the right place for that because they already have existing commissions doing similar things for different populations that are marginalized. And finally, I just want to say, as mother of a gay son, I just wish that we had this kind of resource years ago when my son was struggling and was afraid of coming out. Finally, I am very proud to say that this bill passed 2 years in a row with bipartisan support out of the House. So thank you for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Delegate Chi. Let's go to Mr. Clapsaddle.
Good afternoon. Chair Pinsky and Vice Chair Kagan, my name is Joseph Clapsaddle. I'm a resident of Arnold, Maryland, and I am here speaking for the Episcopalian Diocese of Maryland in support of this bill. I can't say anything more clearly than Delegate Chi did. She gave you a very concise and I think systematic understanding of what a commission like this would achieve. I'm very happy. I was a longtime resident of California, which is supposedly the liberal bastion of the country. But I was very glad to see Delegate Chi and also Senator Washington. Thank you for everything you've done for us. I think the main thing that I want to say is that we need this umbrella. And I'll give you one example and then I will bid you farewell. I am very involved in the Human Relations Commission in Anne Arundel County. I'm also involved in issues with the LGBTQ plus community within the Anne Arundel County school system. And there is so much misinformation about what is needed for all of the individuals in this community. And I was amazed that in a sophisticated county like Anne Arundel County and the Board of Education, there's such a lack of understanding. So I think that a commission, a statewide commission, is going to establish an avenue, a place where people can go. I thank you all. I thank members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you and have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Senator Washington.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Delegate Chi. This is the second time we've had a family member, one of our family members put forward and testifies a legislation on our behalf, and the importance of having, you know, allies in support of LGBTQ and questioning our community. So thank you so much. In some ways, I speak for everyone. I'm the only, you know, officially out member of the Senate. But you know, I definitely appreciate, and I'm sure the other delegates appreciate that we don't have to carry this water, you know, alone. So I really appreciate that. Could I ask, there's a lot of details in the bill about what the commission does. Is this consistent with what other commissions do? We don't always detail all those out, but I just want to, in case anyone asks, is it just very much like what modeled on other commissions?
Yes, it's almost identical in terms of the legal statute and the staffing level and the resource, what the core functions are. This year's bill, we made a minor tweak to make sure there are at least a couple of seats for transgender community, because there's prevalent discrimination against that community in particular. So this community's input, state justice input, we integrated that. But yes, we very much the same as the rest of the commissions. Yes.
And we may need to talk about how to word that, because we've received some advice about how sometimes that can be problematic, having a specific identity listed out. So we'll have to figure out, you know, how to make that work. But I get the importance, and I think it's correct, and I think we'll just figure out the right wording. But
thank you, Senator, for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Delegate Chief, for this bill. You know, I just want to say, as a parent, you know, I'm just so appreciative of you standing by your son, and I feel so sorry for that struggle, additional struggle you had with him growing up and just loving him, your son, and taking care of him. And so, you know, I definitely, as a parent, want to congratulate you for doing that. And also, I noticed in the bill, it calls for the governor to appoint all the members of this commission. Sometimes I see, you know, where we have commissions, and I believe we have maybe the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate will appoint some, and the governor some. Is there a reason why you wanted the governor to appoint all the members of the commission, or are you flexible with that?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. As I said, this bill pretty much mirrors the rest of the governor's commissions in terms of the structure and function and appointment process. And of course, as you know, all of the governor's appointees will have to be confirmed by the Senate. So I would assume the Senate still has a lot of say in who gets appointed, and there are, you know, terms in service. So that's the answer, essentially.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the hearing on Delegate Chief's first bill. Let's go to her second bill.
Okay.
Mobile laundry for the homeless pilot project. Then it will be followed by Delegate Butler and Delegate Valderrama.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I'm Delegate Chi here to present my second bill today, HB 189, which is mobile laundry for the homeless pilot program. Also, this bill passed last year with bipartisan support, so I'm glad to come back here. HB 189 essentially establishes a mobile laundry for the homeless pilot program within the Department of Housing and Community Development. So it can work with existing community partners to provide access to clean water for those who need it, either homeless population or on emergency basis. As we all know, access to clean water is a basic human dignity and a matter of public health as well. I know of a social worker who told me that she's a former homeless woman who actually had to go to public bathroom and use the public restroom to wash her clothes and then put them on wet, because people would literally go to the other end of the bus or across the street when they walk by her or sit next to her. And in Montgomery County Emergency Men's Shelter, one of the first requests when these men walk in was to have their laundries done. Because they cannot go out and see people and have job interviews when they don't have clean laundry. So it's a very basic human need. During the pandemic, that shelter has seen over 50% increase in the population. And if that's the shelter, the population, you can imagine how much worse it must be for the uncounted and unsheltered population. The estimate is Maryland has about over 200 encampments all across the state, but it's hard to reach, so it's hard to access services. I got this idea when I was vacationing with my husband in 2019 in Athens, Greece, when I saw in the public square some happy volunteers running mobile laundry while handing out personal hygiene kits to homeless population. And then I did some digging and realized it was a popular program all across the world. Sydney, Australia had the world's first one, and Denver, Colorado, many cities in California. And so I looked into Maryland, and we actually have something, an organization called Hope on Wheels that has been running mobile laundry and providing other homeless services for years, but they are struggling during the pandemic to keep meeting the needs. Recently in Salisbury, a couple started a homeless shower, mobile shower program for homeless population. So there are community organizations stepping up, but I think if DHCD can leverage the existing service providers to reach those people and use them as point of contact to also connect them to other resources, then it's a win-win for everyone, especially now during public health crisis. I think we all would agree that this is much needed service for everyone. So as I said, it passed the House last year and it passed again. So I hope, I urge you a favorable report, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Senator Ellis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again, Delegate Chief, for this bill. I'm wondering, so the homeless, the mobile laundry service for the homeless. So is it a washing machine, dryers, in a mobile, say, camper that goes around where these homeless populations are? Like we have homeless encampments in all over Maryland, but we have in my district in Charles County also. So that would go where the homeless population is and help do their laundry.
Yes, that's the idea with this pilot program. Now, of course, DHCD has to identify a community service provider that can provide some in-kind equipment, and they are already doing similar kind of services so that they expand the reach and leverage. And then this is a 3-year pilot so that we will assess how we can expand and do it more efficiently. So that's the idea.
Yeah, and I saw it was like a $75,000.
That's just for the pilot, annual pilot, yes, for 3 years.
So what would that money be, would do? Is it to actually provide some of the equipment or for personnel, or?
It could be for a variety of the costs related to setting up the program. It could be hiring a staff to do some volunteer training. And sometimes you have to pay a fee to a local municipality to dump the wastewater after the laundry is done. So there are miscellaneous costs related to that. But for the most part, the idea is to tap into existing DHCD resources as well as community resources to see how we can be more efficient to leverage the services and to expand the reach.
Do you recommend your bill where the pilot would be, where the pilot?
Yes, yes. I've been working with DHCD on this, and they were quite receptive to this idea. So it will be in DHCD's Division of Community Revitalization, which has existing similar resources that also coordinates the interagency council on homelessness or something. Yeah. Like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Senator, it also called for a match, a one-to-one match to access the grant. So in other words, if a local nonprofit came up with 5,000, they might get 5,000. They would do, and they would spend it. So there might be multiple grant applications from across the state. Senator Carozza.
Thank you, Delegate Chief, for the presentation of the bill, SB 189. And since you did mention the Salisbury mobile showering, I actually have personally been on site and have walked through that unit and have personally financially supported it. So I'm aware of the benefits. I guess my question is, I was looking at, this is a pilot program going right to the state level. And, here in my own district, we have a, successful, local partnership. The city of Salisbury is involved. Some of the businesses are involved. And, I'm just from the standpoint of, going right to the state for this, as opposed to, maybe allowing some of these local successful partnerships to work. So I was just trying to better understand your thinking on that, since, we do have one that's working, successfully in my district.
Yes, that's a great question. I don't think a pilot program for 3 years is going to be able to meet all of the needs. But I think, as I said, because the spirit of this bill is to leverage both community resources and the government resources, we can put these two parties together to see how we can expand and better leverage and use those existing service providers as a touch point, so to speak, to make people aware of other existing services. So I would assume in this case, DHCD would have every reason to reach out to existing service providers who already are providing similar services to see how they can partner. So the idea is to encourage partnership.
Okay, I would think so. And from the
yeah.
direction to pilot and making it, statewide, I was going in the other direction to really make sure before we come to the state that we've leveraged all those local partnerships.
I think this bill's spirit is to leverage local partnerships because we don't have such similar programs at the county level, and not all counties' issues are the same. Baltimore City has more of a need and also more of a service network, but many other suburban and rural communities are relatively new and they just don't have the kind of awareness and resources.
Did you have any conversations with MACO or MML on this bill?
No, I did not have a conversation with MACO, and they did not provide any commentary on this one. I worked with the HCD on this and Baltimore City and these nonprofit organizations.
Thank you.
Senator Washington.
Again, not to draw it out, just I chair the Joint Committee on Ending Homelessness for the Senate. So Senator Crozier, I want to tell you absolutely that the model that Delegate Key is following is something that the committee has considered, and what it is to leverage the local partnerships and to create a funding source at the state level that's supporting the local efforts. DHCD, and they've done this, we've done this with our youth, our homeless youth modeling is kind of doing that. I haven't spoken with Delegate Key about this particular pilot program, so I look forward to talking with you, but I assure you that DHCD has been working in these. They're not trying to create state programs. They're trying to figure out how we can leverage federal dollars or other state dollars to help these nonprofits do what they do best on the ground. So it's a good model. So I just want to.
I appreciate the model. I just would then think that MACO and MML and some of those other partners would be involved in this as well.
Yeah, I think her part. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
That could be a next step. Thank you for the suggestion. I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
We need to do it. Yep.
Okay, that completes the hearing on that bill. Thank you, Delegate Chief, for your two bills.
Thank you very much.
We're going to go to HB 663, Delegate. Regulations of amateur radio station antenna structures.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Joe Boatler. I'm here on House Bill 663, dealing with local government regulation of amateur radio antenna structures. This is a bill that I introduced last year, which was House Bill 1225. It passed the House with no opposition, but due to the pandemic and the closure of the General Assembly, it did not make it into the Senate. This same bill actually was passed in California about 2 years ago. Now, what the bill does It establishes certain requirements that apply to a county or municipal ordinances that are regulating amateur radio antenna structures. These antennas are often unnecessarily regulated with zoning laws. Now, what are amateur radio operators? First, they are federally licensed and must follow Part 97 of the FCC rules, amateur radio service rules. Secondly, they are their own infrastructure. When called upon, amateurs use their own equipment, that's radio, power supplies, antenna, and the like, to set up a communication center inside or outside, and interface with event coordinators positioned radio operators at predetermined locations. Thirdly, they provide situational awareness by looking for potential weather or other events that may require emergency communications to be used when requested. And finally, they work with local, state, and federal agencies to coordinate efforts and assist when called upon. An example of a local amateur in an emergency situation demonstrating situational awareness. Don Yurdy, his call sign is K3 Don. This is a local amateur that was the only operator available to witness and report a tornado in Fallston in 2007 directly to the National Weather Service. The National Weather Service was able to confirm this event. And by the way, he is blind. A short list of some other emergencies that these amateurs were critical in is June 4th, 1987, the Chase train wreck. June 20th, 1972, Tropical Storm Agnes. September 9th, 2011, or 2001, 9/11 New York City Twin Towers. September 19th, 2003, Hurricane Isabel. On August 23rd of 2011, there was an earthquake in Maryland and the East Coast. On April 15th, 2013, the Boston Marathon bombing. So anytime there's an emergency and we need to have, and there becomes a shutdown of communication, these guys go into action. They also support working at the local schools and evac centers due to storm-related flooding, as we have seen over the years. I move that you give a favorable vote to this piece of legislation. Thank you. Sorry, I can't hear you.
As you mentioned, last year was an odd year, and there are a number of bills that didn't make it when the legislature closed down. So.
Oh, yes, yeah, I understood that, yeah.
So thank you for your testimony. That concludes the hearing on 663. And the final bill of the day, which will be 684, Delegate Valderrama. This is professional land surveyor surveying practice. Welcome, Delegate Valderrama.
Thank you, Chairman Pinsky, and good afternoon, and Madam Vice Chair Kagan and esteemed members of EHE. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you, and great to see all these former House colleagues of mine. Good to see you all, including my district mate, Senator Patterson. Hello. Having said that, my honor to be here. For the record, Chris Valderrama here to present House Bill 684, titled Professional Land Surveyors Surveying Practice, Definition and Licensing Exception. This legislation simply, really is simple, just seeks to modernize our current statute with regards to land surveying and land surveyors. This legislation is the result of a collaboration between the Board of Professional Land Surveyors and the Maryland Society of Surveyors in an effort to modernize the definition of land surveying. So advancements in technology in the field of land surveying are changing faster than any time in recent history. Surveyors are now using drones, 3D scanners, robotic total stations, global navigation satellite systems to perform data acquisition. And so therefore the definition of land surveying is needed to be modernized to account for the rapidly changing technology. The primary revision of this bill, 684, it relates to specific instruments of measure, such as aerial photogrammetry, global positioning systems, and geographic information systems that will be eliminated from the regulation because of advancements in technology. Additionally, the proliferation of topographic data capturing devices like aerial drones has made this type of data collection more readily available. And so therefore, topographic data collected by an entity with certifications deemed acceptable by the licensing board will not need to be performed by a licensed professional land surveyor. The revisions to the Land Surveyors Practice Act doesn't reduce the current scope of the practice of land surveying and does not limit the scope of other design professionals, for example, professional engineers and landscape architects. The bill simply eliminates references to antiquated methods of data collection and positions the definition of land surveying for future technological advancements. I would like to say that I also have with me on this panel, William Kress, who's here to represent the advocates should you have, need additional information or technological questions that need to be answered. I will say that this bill moved out of House Economic Matters unanimously, bipartisan support, as well as the House floor moving out. And with that, I would respectfully request this committee a favorable report of House Bill 684. Thank you, Chairman Pinsky and Vice Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Valderrama. Questions for the delegate? Seeing one, Senator Ellis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Delegate Valderrama, for this bill. I'm just going through the bill here as you made your presentation, and it seemed like it's exempting individuals who use certain technologies. And my brain went to, say, for instance, a carpenter, right? A carpenter, say, have new tools, but they're still a carpenter. They still have to be licensed and be responsible for their work. Why would we take out certain individuals from being responsible by fully licensed because they use certain technology tools? I'm not clear why would we want to do that.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to answer your question, but as I said, I do have a panelist who can take care of the technological questions, but I will take a stab at it by saying, I don't believe I said we were eliminating or removing the duties of land surveyors. It was simply to modernize the definition, if you will, because there's new equipment, new technologies that are being used. And so again, it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't revise the Land Surveyors Practice Act. It doesn't reduce the current scope of practice of land surveying, and it doesn't limit the scope of design professionals. So I don't know if I answered your question. I was attempting to do so, but if not, I'm sure Mr. Kress could probably, if it wasn't sufficient enough in any event, Senator Ellis.
Bill, do you have anything to add?
Well, first of all, I think the delegate has done a good job to explain the bill. I don't think it's the intent of the licensing board to make any substantive changes with respect to scope of practice. With respect to boundary surveys and precise locations that are conducted by land surveyors, none of that's going to change. And to the extent a carpenter would do location surveys, it doesn't fall within the typical definition of land surveying.
Okay, so I'm just, it was a compare and contrast. I wasn't saying carpenters get in this business. My point was, in looking at this bill, it talks about this section doesn't apply to, say, one, an individual who practices land survey while performing official duties as an officer employee of the federal government, and goes down 2 to 3. And this bill add a 4th category, exempting an individual who utilizes measurement devices or systems, regardless of the technology methods used, for the exclusive purpose of determining topography and contours. So it exempt, for instance, professional surveyors who are currently using, say, certain older technologies. If they start using these technologies or whatever, they're exempt from this section. So what I'm saying is, why would we exempt anyone from this regulatory regime just because they're using drones or more modern technology?
Senator, I'm going to interrupt you, and Ms. Foxworth can maybe assist. This section talks about being licensed. And I think that last section on page 4, all of those categories are described as unless they're certified by an entity acceptable to the board. So I'm not sure it exempts them from all the rest of the act. I think it's basically saying they can be licensed by another type of entity, I think, although we can research this for you.
Yeah, I would need that to be done.
I'd be happy to respond, Mr. Chairman. So that particular section actually deals with topography. There are certain individuals that are doing mapping that really aren't considered land surveying, but they are registered and certified by 2 national associations or institutes. So it was an attempt by the Land Surveying Board to deal with that issue and really to make sure that there isn't allegations of unlicensed surveying when given the fact of what they're doing, which is general topographic surveying. It doesn't fall within the known or understand or the definition is commonly known as land surveying. And this has been going on for some time. It's just new technology where people are using drones to do mapping in general.
Okay. Well, I look forward to following up with committee counsel to create this stuff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that completes the hearing on that bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Pinsky. Thank you, Vice Chair Kagan.
Press. It's 4:09, I believe. Committee will meet at 4:30 in the hearing room to vote some bills. Hopefully a lot of bills. Okay, see you at 4:30.